Matt again from MDW GuitarWorks. Today I'm going to walk you through how I built my Irish Bouzouki. It was a fun project, and I'm going to hand it over to editing Matt in the mobile office to take it away from here. Alright, take it away, Matt.
Well, thanks, Matt. It's editing Matt here in the mobile office, and to get started, I went out on that internet that the kids are all talking about and asked Jeeves and got some help from MySpace Tom, and we found the McNeela Instrument Company website, and it's real cool. You ought to check it out. They're in Ireland. They make traditional Irish instruments and other stuff too. They're well worth checking out. Really cool stuff and lots of videos and neat things that if you want to learn about instruments of all different kinds. And but to start with, I found one of their Irish Bouzouki's that is just their basic model, and it was shaped the way I wanted it, and so I used that, and they had a real good picture of it, and also had dimensions that their model came in, which was helpful. I knew basically how big and what shape they are, but I didn't want to freehand everything and make up my own dimensions if they already got them there. So I found one picture on there and did the old copy onto my phone thing and opened that up in Photoshop, cut it down to just the body of the instrument, and opened it up in Photoshop and put a grid over it. I'm sure there's easier ways to do it in Photoshop than I did it, but I drew the lines on there, spaced against the, well, I resized the image so it was actually the size in the computer that it was supposed to be, so I knew I was working, you say like 1 inch on there is actually an inch, and so resized the picture first and then drew the grid lines on there, with the center line already established in my picture, so it needed to be exactly that far to one side of the center line and the same amount to the other. So got that all done, and once I had that, I didn't really meticulously transfer it on there. I just basically one square at a time transferred that onto a piece of my 1/4 inch plywood. Well, I drew a grid on that too, and so just one square at a time, kind of roughed it in there, and then stepped back and firmed up my lines somewhat, and also double checked that against the kind of self-correction. I once I had the center line and one side done, I cut out a piece of paper that matched in that and flipped it over just to double check that I was exactly symmetrical, which that's it. I generally test against things going wonky one way or the other, but the minute I don't do that, I'm gonna go totally off. But as opposed to my last build that was an asymmetrical thing, which kind of threw me off in a couple of ways, this was symmetrical, is symmetrical, and so lots of things you can do to make sure you're staying symmetrical. So let's see, copy the grid lines and onto a piece of my 1/4 inch plywood, and that served as the basis of my template, which I can use for future builds if I want to do another Bouzouki. This one is planned to be hollow body, which I would call semi-hollow electric, because it's not meant to be an acoustic instrument. It's built out of plywood. It's got a little support block underneath the bridge. It's got a pickup in it. It can be played acoustically. It sounds just fine, but that wasn't the intent. It's meant to be an electric instrument. So I wasn't using tone woods or anything fancy or inside bracing. It's literally basically a cigar box guitar, and that's, I don't make any pretenses of it being anything else. So let's see, from my picture on the Photoshop there, I transferred roughly where the sound hole should be and roughly where the bridge placement's going to be. Then I cut out the template and sawed it to shape. And then I traced that onto several layers of my 1/2-inch plywood and the 1/4 inch. Cut out the layers and I routed to that template. And then I stacked the layers up and checked them for fit, and they fit. I cut out the interior of one of the layers of plywood, and I used that as a guide and a routing template for cutting out the other layers. Now at this point, I'm starting to consider the neck pocket, and I didn't have the neck yet when I was cutting the interiors out, so I was very conscious of the fact that some of the layers that I was cutting might not have the neck pocket in there, and some will. So I hadn't, I figured that out, and I had originally planned on it being just a straight, like, bolt-on type of neck, like a Fender style neck, but I didn't have the neck in my hands right then and there, so I couldn't measure for that. So let's see, put it all together and checked for overall fit. Of course, as you go, I'm double checking the center line and the position of the sound hole, make sure that it looks good. So I cut out the sound hole, and I don't have a 3-inch hole saw, so I just used a jigsaw and a Dremel to true up the shape. I could have gotten a 3-inch hole saw, but how many times am I going to use a 3-inch hole saw? I figured not that many. So it takes a little longer to use the jigsaw and the Dremel, but you get the same result, and so might as well go that way. So I glued up the top 1/4 inch and one of the 1/2 inch pieces, because that was going to be the front of the instrument. And then I double checked that it all still fit in the Les Paul case. And I think I put together the back portion of the body at that point, though I hadn't cut the neck pocket yet. Let me see. I think I glued 2 of the back portions. No, they would be like the middle portions. Glued them together and cut the neck pocket in there in anticipation of. No, I didn't do that. That would have been dumb. I didn't know how wide the neck was going to be. So let's see. So I started finalizing the measurements and figuring out roughly where the neck and bridge are going to be, and around that time I got the neck and all the other hardware that I had ordered, so then I was able to cut the neck pocket. And so next step is after I installed the neck, I drilled the holes for the tuners and also in the body for the controls. Put a nice coat of paint over the whole thing. I did it all in gloss black at first, and then that took some experimentation. I got a fancier kind of weird double hue 2-tone sort of paint that was supposed to go over black that somewhat disappointed me. Didn't turn out to be how I wanted it, so I went over that. I sanded most of that off and then went over that with a better quality black and nice kind of gloss varnish that looked real nice. And over the face of the body and the headstock, I did kind of a metallic gold sponge paint application that looked, I think, pretty spiffy. So installed the tuners and started installing some of the hardware. As you'll see, that tailpiece is a little bit off, and I eventually moved it over probably a whole inch to the left. you can see how the best of plans can result in your center line drifting off a little bit, but we can deal with that. Screwed down the tuners, then I cut the neck slots. No, I cut the slots in the nut, and also I wired the pickup to the controls and to the bridge ground. I eventually got rid of the pickup spacers that lifted the pickup up, and ended up only having to use some small washers to elevate the pickup a little bit, because I noticed it kind of adjusted itself a little bit under tension. So I also ended up getting rid of the little saddle that I had under the bridge, lifting it by a bit, and which was good. I'm glad I had made those parts to go in there and then ended up not needing them, because if I had gone with the plan of not needing them at all, the adjustment of the instrument under tension would have made the action impossible to work around. I probably would have worked around something, but I might have ended up having to reset the neck entirely, and that's no fun. Let's see. So final assembly of everything, and then I put the strings on and let everything settle in, and it did have some fairly substantial settling in. The neck angle I thought was way too far back, and I was going to have to lift the bridge up considerably, and as it settled in under tension, it kind of pulled everything together and into a nicer lower profile angle. So that was dumb luck pretty much, but in the little limited shop that I've got, I don't have a lot of control over how things work, and I'm still not satisfied with the damn Home Depot plywood that I get. I'm gonna figure out something better to work with for my next build. That stuff is terrible. Luan type of stuff makes you sneeze. Everything you cut on it leaves this furry edge that won't sand off, and then you start sanding it, and now you're sanding into the wood, and that fur is still there, and it's just nasty and chippy and furry and all kinds of mean, nasty, horrible things. But I'm gonna figure out something better to use that leaves you a nice crisper edge. Fortunately on this one I didn't need a whole lot of hard edges, but yeah, this stuff was nasty to work with. Let's see. The neck pocket was weird. I cut a neck pocket into the first couple of layers, including the top layer, and left a heel on the next couple of layers. And once I got the neck to measure by, and got the neck and all the hardware, pretty much everything except for the strings, I got at MGB Guitars. And if you get a chance, man, go to MGB. Mike will hook you up. I know I made a little fun of him in the last video about my parts taking forever to get here, but it was right during Christmas time. I'm sure the guy had other things to do than getting me my dulcimer hardware. So, you know, no big deal. But if you're interested in just getting started with like building instruments, cigar box kits are really a good way to go, and you can learn a lot of the basics in instrument building from trial and error working on cigar box kits. And if you screw the whole thing up, you're only out a couple of bucks. You know, you can go to a cigar store and they'll sell you cigar boxes for what, $1 a piece, $2 a piece, and you can get a neck from MGB for 20 bucks, You can spend more on them, but you know, you want to make a small cigar box with a small neck, or a cigar box ukulele or something. That'd be a real good intro project. You know, it's a fun thing to get into. And let's see, but installing that neck, I had the neck pocket, but the neck that I got was like I said, intended for a cigar box build, and so it had a little bolt sticking out of the neck, and I was figuring I was just gonna cut that off and sand it down flush and use the thing as like you would a regular, like Bender style guitar neck. And I had a second thought right as I was grabbing the grinder to cut that thing up, and I cut a little channel that allowed for that bolt to fit right in there and screw to the neck, or screw to the body. And it came with a washer and a nut, and put that washer and that nut on there and tighten it up. It held it nice and secure. I wasn't gonna depend on that bolt for all of the strength of the neck, but I used that just to hold it in place. And I thought, well, okay, one extra piece of hardware keeping that secure isn't gonna hurt anything. And oh, hey, scary looking white band. Yeah, don't go too close to a school zone. All right, but so had the neck right there in that slot with the bolt in, and I put in some glue and got it right in my neck pocket, and then I put a couple of screws through the back. Had these nice stainless steel screws like you'd put in the back of a Fender style guitar, and but I just put 2 in there. So I figured between the bolt holding it to the body and 2 screws in the back and the glue and the nice tight joint that I had made for the neck pocket, wasn't really going anywhere. And so once it was secure in there and the glue had dried, I trimmed down the body to give it kind of a heel joint type of thing. So once if you're ever playing that far up on the neck, which I don't plan on doing, I don't play up there, it'd have a nice rounded heel. And so let's see, yeah, talked about cigar boxes, cigar box guitars, and once you start digging into cigar boxes, you're gonna find there's a whole world of people that build things, and cigar box style instruments are a lot of fun. I built a upright bass that obviously I didn't make a cigar box or buy a cigar box for that. I built a box for it, but the principle was the same. The neck was held, or the neck has like 2 big old dowels on there that go down to a block, and I built the box around that. So it was cigar box guitar style, and I'm currently in the process of rewiring that so the pickup works. Did get the pickups for that from MGB. MGB is a handy resource if you want to get like small inexpensive pickups. You don't have to cannibalize old yard sale guitars. If you're building something with 2 or 3 strings or something, and you want a pickup that just looks like it fits under 2 or 3 strings or 4 strings or whatever, you can get all different configurations of pickups, single coils, double coils. And the double coils, the humbucker style pickups, the ones that I got come with wiring all loose so that you can do it split coil if you wanted to. I didn't bother doing that for this, but it's good to know for future reference. If I wanted to have a split coil option, I could do that. Which, if you don't know, split coil is basically where you take a humbucker pickup, which is actually 2 single coil pickups that are, right up against each other, and normally those 2 are just wired together, so the induction coil, whatever, goes from one end to the other and then straight out to your controls or to your output jack or whatever. And what you can do is have them separate with a switch, so you can switch. And a lot of times people use push-pull knobs so that it'll control the volume, but pulling the knob out will make it split coil, so only one of these is firing. And just a different tonal quality is all it is. In the guitar world, I've got one of my guitars has split coil humbuckers, and it's a nice feature because, I mean, it's not gonna sound like it's not gonna make your Les Paul sound like a Bender Strat, but live and on stage, it's a close enough approximation. If you want to get single coil sound for a certain song, you know, it's a good shortcut. Ideally, if you're seriously going for a certain tone, just bring a Strat, okay? I know there's a big just in front of bring a Strat for a lot of people, but if the tone of your guitar meant that much to you that you would switch from a humbucker to a split coil, then it probably means enough to you that you'd bring a Strat. If you want to do some Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jimi Hendrix or somebody that's known for that Strat sound. Just my 2 cents. Split coils are still cool though, you know. Not even having to move or switch guitars and you got a different tone. It's worthwhile, I guess. But anyway, so I'm going to hand you back over to Shop Matt, and he's going to tell you the rest of the video.
Well, alright, so there you have it. It's my Irish Bouzouki. Alright then, so there you have it. That was my video on how I built this here Irish Bouzouki. Catch you next time. Bye now.